The Illustrator layout is starting to wind down. We only have a few more things to do here. Now, we're going to set up the text across the bottom area of the layout. I suppose what you could call the footer area of the layout. But there's a couple of cool things that I want to bounce off of you here. And this may wind up getting broken out across a few lessons, but there's definitely some cool stuff that I want to show you here. Do you know about symbols? Do you know about symbols in Illustrator? I hope you know about symbols in Flash, because symbols in Flash really are sort of the meat and potatoes of Flash, in addition to, the timeline and all that good stuff. But we also have symbols here in Illustrator, and they don't necessarily serve the same purpose here in Illustrator as they do over in Flash, but there's a lot of parallels between the two. So check this out. This triangle that you and I had created here in the last exercise, I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to convert him to an Illustrator symbol. And not only is this going to assist me in Illustrator to help me finish off the layout, but this is also going to tie into our process of bringing our Illustrator layout over into Flash. So that's going to tie in there. So I'll definitely remind you of that when we come to that point. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this white triangle that we've created here, and I'm going to convert him to an Illustrator symbol by heading into Illustrator's symbol palette. So head to your window menu, look for symbols, and this is your symbols palette. Now, if you've never done this before, you're in for a real treat here. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this object that I've created. It could be text, it could be, whatever you've got, right? Take it and drag and drop it directly into the symbols palette, and we get this symbol options dialog box appearing. And it's asking us for a name. So I'm going to call this white arrow or white triangle or whatever you want to call them there. And then check this out. It says type, movie clip or graphic. Now, if you know your Flash, you know that we actually have 3 primary symbol types. In addition to movie clips and graphics, we also have buttons, right? But we're not able to create buttons just yet here in Illustrator. But here's the cool thing, is if I set this guy as a movie clip symbol here in Illustrator and then pull this Illustrator content over into Flash, then Flash is going to recognize the object not only as a symbol, but as a movie clip symbol or as a graphic symbol. Again, when we get to that point, I will definitely remind you of exactly what's happening here. So this is definitely going to play a huge role when we get our content across into Flash. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this guy as a graphic symbol. Notice the message here. Movie clip and graphic are tags for Flash import. There's no difference between the two in Illustrator. So Illustrator, if you're only using symbols in Illustrator, it doesn't matter which one you choose, right? But we're intending to take our layout over to Flash, so we definitely want to make sure we set our symbol type. Okay, there we go. So we've set up our white arrow as a graphic symbol. Go ahead and click on OK. The symbol is now added to the symbols palette, right? Which is great. Now, how do symbols actually work? Now, give me about 30 seconds of your time and I'll explain exactly how this works if you've never done this before. The next layout element that we're going to create is going to be some content down here in the footer, and it's also going to have a white arrow. So I guess I could take the existing white arrow that we've already created, the triangle, and duplicate it. But since we've already converted this guy to a symbol, we may as well, rather than duplicating another white triangle, we can now use symbols, and that's going to save us some time. Besides, notice that when I select the white triangle, it's no longer a white triangle. Check out the options bar at the top. Instance of white arrow. So this is no longer the 3-sided star. It's now a symbol saved inside the symbols panel. So as soon as you drag content over into the symbols panel and convert it to a symbol, it's no longer that original content. It's now a symbol, right? Now, again, if you know this in Flash, this is going to be super easy for you here in Illustrator. So we have the original now sitting inside the symbols palette and instances or occurrences of that symbol sitting out inside our layout, right? So check this out. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the original here inside the symbols palette. I'm going to drag and drop them out into my interface just like this, right? And let's say, for example, I decide to make a change. Well, I don't want this guy to be white anymore. I want him to be blue, or I want him to be green, or I want him pointing down instead of pointing to the right, or whatever, right? So check this out. I'm going to double click on this symbol directly inside my layout. And I get this warning here. You're about to edit the symbol definition. Any edits or any changes that you make to the symbol will be applied to all instances inside your layout. Are you really sure you want to continue? Now, of course, I'm totally comfortable doing this. I know exactly what's going to happen. So I'm going to say don't show again, and I'm going to click on OK. All right, now the screen completely changes. I'm now in symbol editing mode. Again, if you've done this in Flash, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to grab my object there, and maybe what I'll do is I'll just make a really simple basic change here. All I'm going to do is change the fill color. Maybe I'll make it lime green, something like this, right? There, perfect. Now notice that this guy changes, but the original, the first guy that we had still doesn't, he hasn't updated yet, right? Well, check this out. I'm still inside this symbol editing mode. I get this message across the top that I'm inside a graphic symbol called white arrow, and there's an arrow pointing to the left that says exit the isolation mode, or exit the edit mode, if you will. Well, let's back out of this edit mode, and now any instances of my white arrow symbol now instantly update, right? Now again, if you're using Illustrator to build Flash interfaces, using the symbols palette here in Illustrator is critical. But even if you're just using Illustrator to, I don't know, maybe you're doing a one-page brochure, or maybe you're building something that's going to wind up in Dreamweaver or something, and you have a lot of graphics that are being used over and over and over again, symbols are still going to help you out big time, right? So anyway, there you go. That's the idea behind symbols. I'm going to go and change this guy back to white. So again, just double click on him. That gets you into the edit mode. Now, whatever I do to this guy at this point is going to be duplicated to all the other instances of the white arrow symbol inside our layout. We only have one other, but you get the drift. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the color back to white. Something like that. Back out of the exit isolation mode there. Back out of that. And we're back to where we were. Perfect. Now, the other cool thing that I can do when I'm messing around with these instances, so again, an instant is just a copy of the original symbol, right? Is I can edit him on his own. I can scale him up, I can rotate him, I can do whatever I want to him, right? And not necessarily impact the other instances on the screen, right? So what I'm going to do here is, I'm not exactly sure how large I want this guy, but I do want him a little bit larger than the original. So I'm just using my shift key and I'm scaling this guy up. All right, there you go. So that's kind of the down and dirty run through on symbols anyway here inside Illustrator. Now we have the rest of our layout to finish off. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this exercise here, and we will continue on with finishing off the layout in the next exercise.